Okay, I'm gonna get straight to the point. Everything is better with matcha, like this. Okay, today I'll be making matcha Swiss rolls. These are all the ingredients that we'll be using, minus milk, which I forgot to put out for the shot. As you can see, this recipe really doesn't require a lot of ingredients, so you should definitely give it a try. To start things off, we're going to make the body of the roll, which is essentially a flat sheet of chiffon cake. Measure out 90 grams or 3/4 cups of flour. Ideally, this should be cake flour, but all-purpose will do just fine. Then we're going to separate 5 eggs. We'll be whipping up the egg whites, so be very careful in this step not to get any parts of the yolk in the white. Any fat in the egg whites will prevent it from puffing up. I'm doing this by cracking all the eggs into one bowl, then using my hand to scoop out the yolks. With the eggs separated, we're going to prepare what makes this Swiss roll matcha. In a small bowl, measure out 90 grams or 1/3 cup of vegetable oil, along with 2 tablespoons of matcha powder. Mix the powder into the oil and stir until completely dissolved. It's very difficult for matcha to dissolve evenly in milk or water or in the flour mixture, so mixing the matcha powder here is very important. Set that aside and measure out 60 grams or 1/4 cup of milk. Add the milk and matcha oil into the yolks, not the whites, the yolks, and mix until homogeneous before slowly adding in the flour. We want our chiffon cake sheet to be soft, so use a spatula to fold in the flour to prevent overmixing. Now we're going to whip up the egg whites, which if you've seen my previous video, we'll employ the help of my cordless drill, aka my favorite kitchen tool. Start mixing the egg whites on medium speed until you see bubbles start to form, then add in 55 grams or 1/4 cup of granulated sugar while mixing. Beat the eggs on high speed until it reaches medium peak. We want the whites to be soft because the yolk and flour mixture is rather dry. Peak strength refers to how the peak of the egg whites stand when you lift out the whisk. Medium peak is when the tip of the egg gently falls over but still has some structure. Now it's time to combine our egg whites and yolk. Begin by gently folding in 1/3 of the egg whites into the yolk and flour mixture, then pour everything back into the beaten egg whites and fold until homogeneous and no visible streaks. The concept here is that instead of using chemical leavening such as baking powder or baking soda to fluff up the cake with carbon dioxide, we are creating those air bubbles with the beaten egg white, which has a ton of tiny air bubbles mixed in. The key thing here is to not burst those bubbles while we're mixing in the egg white. Now we're ready to bake this cake sheet. Line a rim baking sheet with parchment paper. Mine measures 9 by 13 by 1/2 inch. The size of your baking sheet will directly determine how long and thick your Swiss roll is going to end up being. You want a length that's at least 11 inches. Pour the cake batter into the baking sheet and smooth out the top as best as possible, as it may end up being the outer side when we do the roll. I think I could have filled the sheet a bit more when I made this, but I decided to be safe and filled it about 3/4 of the way to the top. Bake in a 320-degree oven for 20 to 25 minutes and watch it towards the end as the sheet is quite thin and can burn quickly. Once it's done baking, remove the parchment paper as soon as possible or it will start to wrinkle. And now it's time to decide which side you will want to be the outside or the presentation side of the roll. My parchment paper tore off pieces of the underside, so I'll be using the imperfect side as the inside of the roll. Transfer onto a cooling rack with your determined inside, contacting the rack as the rack will almost certainly leave marks. If you're like me who is clumsy and not very well coordinated, just take it slow and be careful when you're flipping the sheets over. Let it cool only for a few minutes as we're starting the roll when the sheet is still warm. Lay a large piece of parchment paper under the cake sheet with the imperfect side facing you. Trim off the top and bottom edges as they're usually hard from the higher heat. Feel free to eat these as a quick snack as we're about to start rolling the cake. Hey guys, I am talking to you guys while editing this video. It's because I just realized that I made a really stupid mistake that I honestly should not have. And that is that I forgot to record a large section of the making process. So right now we're at a place where you have your cake sheet rolled out and it's still warm. You trim off the top and bottom edges. What you actually want to do is that you want to start the rolling the cake sheet up to about 1/3 of the way. You don't have to go all the way. We just want to get the tighter areas rolled because they will crack if you roll it cold. I'm so sorry I forgot to record this. Hope you guys can understand. And back to the video. Okay, now that we can let the cake sheet completely cool to room temperature, it's time to make the whipped cream filling. Measure out 180 grams or 3/4 cups of heavy cream and 35 grams or 3 tablespoons of powdered sugar. I like using powdered sugar in whipped cream because often I found granulated sugar not dissolving all the way. In a chilled bowl and whisk attachment with the cordless drill, of course, mix the heavy cream on high speed and slowly add in the sugar once bubbles form. Contrary to egg whites, we're actually beating the whipped cream to stiff peaks so that they can actually hold their shape inside the roll. I'm also adding in about 2 teaspoons of matcha powder near the end. This way I have sprinkles of matcha powder instead of green whipped cream. Once your whipped cream is mixed and ready to go, it's time for the final assembly. Take the cake sheet and cut the edge that is at the end of the roll at a 45-degree angle. And if you're ever wondering what I do with those scraps, I eat them while listening to Harry Styles. Anyways, we're going to evenly spread the whipped cream on top of the cake sheet. From edge to edge, I'm going for about a 1/4 inch thick layer of whipped cream. Smooth out the surface as best as you can, as it'll give a more even cross section when we cut it. Once satisfied with the spread, thin out the edges near the beginning and end of the roll. This will give an overall neater roll. That was kind of hard to say. I did some final smoothing with a bench scraper. Now we're fully ready to roll this thing up. Start from the pre-rolled side and using the parchment paper to wrap everything together until you have a complete roll. Tuck the top layer of parchment paper under the bottom of the cake sheet and pull against a flat object to tighten up the roll. Check the roll to try to make it as perfect of a cylinder as you can make it, and make sure that the ending edge of the roll is on the bottom so that the weight of the roll can keep it closed. We're gonna wrap this up and let it chill in the fridge overnight until we get to the final product. And there you have it, matcha Swiss roll. This is perfect for the summer. It's light and refreshing, and it's not that hard to make. So if you've enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you want to see made next on this channel. That's it for today's video. I'll see you guys next time.